Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Weekly Rotation, where we look at what's in my pen case this week. Quick rundown of my pen philosophy, if you will, seeing as though this is the first episode that I've done of this. I get pens for function over form. I use pens for these pens for everyday writing and journaling, and really my passion is in inks. So these pens are servants to the ink, and I'm not in this for expensive, fancy, limited edition pens or necessarily anything particularly high end, just pens that write really well, that I can use with my daughter, that I can take with me, that I can travel with and not get too stressed about. So, a little bit of information. I'm a bullet journaler. I love the bullet journal system, and at the moment I'm using this Leuchtturm 1917 lime green. And so I only like to work in these in two colours, one for sort of headers and one for the writing. And so black for the writing, hence the black All-Star, and then green for everything else. So at the moment I'm using the Lambie Safari Neon Lime inked with a green ink. And so those will stay as long as I'm using this journal. Okay, well, let's start with the All-Star. I really like the Lambie pens. I really like this pen. It was one of my first, and it's still one of my favourite sort of go-to knock around everyday carry pens. It's always inked black, but the black swaps out. While my go-to black has been Lambie black over the last few years, in recent times I've been swapping that out occasionally, trying out a few other blacks. At the moment, the Lambie All-Star, which has a fine nib, is inked with diamine jet black. Now, when you think jet black, you think of dark black, and this isn't that. This is sort of a softer black with a bit of grey sort of coming through, which I quite like. I do prefer blacks, but there's something nice about sort of the softness or the more gentle black of this ink. Will it stay in this pen? Well, I'll run the fill out, but other than that, I will probably go back to Lambie black for the next cycle through. The next pen is the Lambie Safari Neon Lime. Now, as I said, this is inked in green, of course, to match the green journal, and that green will stay for the next couple of months. And I'm really glad about that, because I really love it. So this is a Lambie Safari. Once again, a fine nib. I find the fines are better on the Leuchtturm notebooks, while you can use mediums in Rhodia and such. I think with the ghosting that you get on a Leuchtturm, it's better to use a fine nib. Now, this ink is from one of my favourite ink brands. Some of you might be able to pick what it is already. It's a Mont Blanc, and it is Irish green. I love this green. It's rich and vibrant without being too bright. It's much more subtle than, say, meadow green or one of those sorts of colours. It's got enough depth to be professional and readable, and enough colour to make it sort of quite nice and something different to look at. And I think the darker green with the lighter pen match the journal quite nicely. Now, purple is my favourite colour, so I always try and have a purple pen inked with a purple ink. At the moment, I have the Jinhao X750 purple, which isn't one of their standard purple finishes, but I managed to find this on eBay, and I really like it. I think it's a beautiful looking pen anyway, but especially now that I've swapped the nib for a Goulet pen's medium nib, which I think the black just looks great with this pen. So this is the Jinhao X750 with a Goulet medium. Now, this particular purple surprised me. I didn't think I'd like it because it's sort of it's a slightly, I suppose, bluer purple. I quite like the Lambie purple or something like the Diamond Imperial purple. But this ink, the Mont Blanc Lavender Purple, really surprised me. It goes on lighter than it dries, and I quite like the fact that it dries darker. It's very nice, rich, bluey purple, and something that I can see myself using a lot. It doesn't have the sheen that, say, Lambie Dark Lilac has, but there's a little bit there if you put enough down. Now the next pen is one of my absolute favourite pens, and a pen that I struggle not to have inked up at all times with this exact same ink, even though I have tried. It's the Visconti Michelangelo in the true blue finish with the rose gold. It's a medium nib, and like most Viscontis, it writes quite wet, and I really do like it. One thing I really like about this pen is the magnetic cap. I prefer screw caps, even though I don't think any of my pens this week are screw caps, but that magnetic cap is quite cool. Okay, Visconti Michelangelo with a medium. Now, I've tried other blues in this pen, tried to put other blues in this pen, and nothing ever stays. I always come back to this particular blue, and that is Iroshizuku Kon-Peki. It's a really lovely, vibrant blue. It's okay for professional use, but bright enough once again to have some sort of colour on the page. It's a really well-known ink, really popular, and rightfully so. It is really a very beautiful ink. Next we have another sort of entry-level pen. It's a Faber-Castell Loom, once again in a medium nib. As you can see, I'm a left-hander, so sometimes stubs and italic nibs just don't get any real effect for me. So I like to keep it to sort of standard fine and mediums where I can. But this one writes really, really well and very, very wet. The ink I have in this is another Mont Blanc, Faber-Castell Loom, and medium. And as you can see, that Mont Blanc is the Mont Blanc Oyster Grey. Very cool ink. I was a pencil fanatic before I really came to fountain pens. So this ink sort of harkens back to that a little bit. I really, really like the grey. I've been exploring greys recently, and there's something about the shading and the general colour tone of this particular grey that just, I think, is absolutely beautiful. So yes, awesome Oyster Grey Mont Blanc. Now the final pen today is probably the cheapest one, especially once you put the Goulet Pens nib in the Jinhao, and it's a Pilot Metropolitan. Now, I really didn't like this pen when I first got it. I had this pen for quite a while before I really turned onto it, and it's only in the last sort of few weeks that I've started to use it more. I have the medium, which is quite a fine medium, but the ink I have in here is from one of my absolute favourite brands, Pilot Metropolitan with a medium, and the ink is Robert Oster Blue Black. Robert Oster, one of my favourite ink brands, great Australian company, and this ink is really nice. I love blue blacks. Blue blacks are my absolute favorite ink color, and they're great for professional use, but once again, a little bit of color, just not enough for it to stand out, but enough that you can see that it's not just black on the page. This blue black is sort of a more purpley blue black. I find it to be similar to something like a Diamine Eclipse, but a little drier. And I don't mind that for a pen like this. When I tried it in the Platinum 3776, it was way too dry. But in a wetter pen like this, it has a nice effect and a nice finish. So those are the 6 pens I have currently in rotation this week. They're good everyday writers, nothing that it's going to stand out sort of too much, and apart from the Visconti perhaps, nothing that if I lost it I wouldn't be too distressed about. Upset perhaps, but not distressed. So if you like this video and you found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to be kept up to date with the videos that I produce. Feel free to drop me a message with any pens or ink you'd particularly like me to look at, or any questions you have. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll see you later.